Change. It's the one constant we all resist. We say we want it, a better job, a new habit, a fresh start, yet when it arrives, something inside us hesitates. We cling to the familiar, even when it hurts. We fear the unknown, even when the old no longer fits. But what if change isn't hard because we're weak, but because our brains are wired against it? Today, let's decode why change feels so difficult, what happens in your mind when you try to evolve, and how to make transformation something you grow through instead of something you run from. 1. The brain's love affair with the familiar. Let's start with a truth your brain lives by. Familiar equals safe. For thousands of years, human survival depended on predictability. The caveman who stayed near the same water source lived longer than the one who wandered into unknown territory. Over time, our nervous system learned to equate routine with safety and novelty with risk. That ancient instinct still runs your modern life. It's why even positive change, moving cities, starting a business, or breaking a habit, feels stressful. Your brain doesn't see growth, it sees uncertainty. The amygdala, your brain's alarm center, fires up when something disrupts your normal pattern. Adrenaline and cortisol rise. You feel anxious, hesitant, and restless, not because you're broken, but because your brain thinks it's protecting you. In other words, resistance to change isn't laziness, it's biology. 2. The comfort zone. The brain's emotional refuge. We've all heard about the comfort zone. It's often painted as a place of mediocrity, but psychologically, it's more than that. It's the zone of emotional safety, the place where your identity feels intact. When you step outside of it, the brain experiences cognitive dissonance, a tension between your old self and your new actions. That tension is uncomfortable because it threatens your sense of who you are. Let's say you've always seen yourself as shy. The moment you start speaking up in meetings, your subconscious says, "Wait, that's not me." Even if the change is good, it feels unnatural at first. That's why change often triggers identity anxiety. You're not just changing habits, you're rewriting who you believe yourself to be. 3. The fear of loss. Every change involves loss of routine, relationships, certainty, or comfort. The brain processes all loss the same way as pain. Neuroscientists call this loss aversion, the principle that humans feel the pain of loss twice as strongly as the pleasure of gain. This is why we hesitate to leave a bad job, an unhealthy relationship, or an old lifestyle, even when we know we deserve better. Your logical mind says, "This is growth." Your emotional brain says, "This is danger." And in most people, the emotional brain wins. That's why the first step in mastering change is compassion. You can't fight your brain's resistance. You must soothe it. 4. The biology of adaptation. Here's where it gets fascinating. Inside your brain, change is a literal rewiring process. Every thought, behavior, or habit forms a neural pathway, a connection between brain cells. The more you repeat something, the stronger that pathway becomes. When you try to change, you're asking the brain to build a new road, while still living on the old one. That's why it feels clumsy at first. Neuroscientist Donald Hebb summarized it beautifully. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Change, then, is not a switch, it's construction. The brain physically reshapes itself through neuroplasticity, the ability to form new connections. It's uncomfortable, but it's progress you can literally see under a microscope. The discomfort you feel isn't failure, it's rewiring. 5. The transition phase. The in-between. Every change has 3 psychological stages: the ending, the neutral zone, and the beginning. The ending. Something old ends. A habit, a belief, a chapter. You feel grief or resistance. The neutral zone. You're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. This is the most uncomfortable phase, the uncertainty zone. The beginning, the new identity forms. The unfamiliar becomes familiar again. Most people quit in the neutral zone because it feels chaotic. But that's where transformation actually happens. It's like the space between inhaling and exhaling, where growth breathes. If you can stay there long enough, discomfort turns into direction. 6. Why we self-sabotage during change. Ever notice how right when you start improving something gets in the way? You skip the gym, overspend, or go back to an old habit. That's homeostasis, your brain's way of maintaining balance. Change, even positive change, threatens that balance. The subconscious mind tries to restore the old normal by pulling you back through distraction or doubt. This is why self-sabotage isn't weakness, it's a protective reflex. Your system is saying, "This is new. Are you sure it's safe?" The key is awareness. When you recognize sabotage as fear wearing a disguise, you can respond with patience instead of punishment. 7. The psychology of small wins. Big change overwhelms the brain. Small change excites it. Every small win releases dopamine, the reward chemical, reinforcing the new behavior. Over time, those micro successes stack into momentum. This is why habit stacking works, attaching a new behavior to an old one. Want to meditate daily? Do it right after brushing your teeth. The brain loves continuity. It reduces uncertainty. Small wins tell your nervous system, "See? Change doesn't kill me." Do that enough, and your brain starts craving growth instead of fearing it. 8. The emotional waves of change. Psychologists often describe change as an emotional curve: shock, denial, resistance, exploration, acceptance, growth. At first, there's disbelief, then frustration, then a gradual testing of the new reality. Only after emotional adaptation comes integration. Knowing this curve helps you stay patient. You don't expect to love change immediately. You ride its emotional weather. Even resilience isn't about staying strong. It's about staying flexible. Like bamboo in the wind, not stone in the storm. 9. How to reprogram your brain for change. Here's how to make your brain an ally instead of an obstacle. Start small. Big leaps trigger fear. Tiny steps fly under its radar. Visualize the outcome. The brain can't distinguish vividly. Imagine success from real experience. This primes new neural circuits. Anchor safety. Keep a few familiar routines during major change. Familiarity reduces threat. Reframe fear. Replace "this feels scary" with "this feels new." Same sensation, different story. Celebrate progress. Every little milestone rewires the brain toward reward instead of resistance. Remember, change isn't about forcing a new identity. It's about expanding who you already are. 10. The deep truth about transformation. Here's what psychology and spirituality quietly agree on. Real change isn't an event, it's an evolution. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about shedding what no longer fits. When a snake sheds its skin, it looks vulnerable, but that vulnerability is growth. The old layer must die for the new one to emerge. Humans are the same. We outgrow jobs, habits, relationships, and versions of ourselves. That's not failure, that's nature. The people who adapt best to change aren't the smartest or strongest, they're the most flexible. They bend without breaking. Change is life's way of asking, how much more of yourself are you willing to meet? Every time you resist, you stay who you were. Every time you allow it, you meet who you can become. Change will always feel uncomfortable at first, but so does growth, healing, and freedom. Because when you stop running from change, you stop running from yourself. If this exploration made you rethink your relationship with change, don't resist that pull, follow it. Click subscribe, give this video a like, and keep growing with Mind Decode, where every transformation begins with understanding your mind. Because change doesn't get easier, you just get wiser.